I walked into Medbay and saw myself already standing at the scanner, which was impossible because I was me and I was walking into Medbay. The other me turned around, made eye contact, and we both screamed at exactly the same pitch for exactly the same duration, which proved we were definitely the same person. I said, "Who are you?" And they said, "I'm Red." And I said, "That's my name." And they said, "No, it's my name." And we were off to a terrible start. Other me suggested we both scan to prove who's real, except when I scanned it said healthy, and when they scanned it also said healthy, which solved nothing. Green walked in, looked at both of us, said, "Oh great, there's two of you now," and left without elaborating, which was the worst possible response. Other me and I decided to go to cafeteria together to call an emergency meeting, which felt like bringing a problem to HR that HR definitely wasn't qualified to handle. We walked in sync, breathed in sync, and when I scratched my visor, they scratched theirs, which was either really cool or deeply unsettling. I tried to test them by asking what's our favorite color, and they said red, obviously, and I realized this was the stupidest test I could have chosen. Other me asked what's our mother's name, and I said we grew up in a cloning facility, we don't have a mother, and they said, "Oh, right," and we got sad together. Cyan found us crying and asked which one of you is the real Red, and we both said I am, and Cyan said this is above my pay grade and walked away. Other me theorized they might be from an alternate timeline, and I theorized maybe the ship's cloning bay malfunctioned, and we both agreed we had no idea what we were talking about. Yellow walked past and said, "Hey, Red's plural," which confirmed that everyone could see both of us, and this wasn't a personal hallucination. I suggested one of us might be the imposter shapeshifted as me, and Other me said, if I was the imposter, why would I shapeshift as someone who's already here? And that was a good point. We decided to do the ultimate test, tasks that only the real Red would know how to do, specifically the wires and electrical that I failed 800 times. We both failed the wires in the exact same way, connecting red to blue and somehow making the lights explode, which proved we were both equally incompetent. Blue called an emergency meeting to address the two red situation, and the entire crew just stared at us like we were a science experiment gone wrong. Purple suggested we vote one of us out, and both Other me and I said that's murder, and Purple said it's technically pest control, which didn't help. Orange said maybe they're both real and we just have two Reds now, and White said the crew roster only has budget for one Red, which made this a financial issue. Green suggested a battle royale, last Red standing gets to keep the name, and both Other me and I said absolutely not at the exact same time. Cyan asked if we could just share the identity like divorced parents share custody, and I said that's not how identity works, and Other me agreed while nodding identically. The crew voted to skip, which meant both of us got to stay, and Other me and I high-fived, which felt narcissistic but also completely natural. We decided to room together in crew quarters since sharing space with yourself is either the best roommate situation or a recipe for insanity. Other me took the top bunk without asking, and I got annoyed until I realized I would have done the exact same thing, which was frustrating and validating. That night I heard Other me snoring, realized I snore, and had an existential crisis about what my crewmates have been dealing with for 3 months. I woke up to find Other me had already done all my morning tasks, which was helpful but also made me feel lazy about my own existence. We started competing over who was the better Red, racing to complete tasks, which the crew found entertaining in a reality TV kind of way. Other me completed the download in cafeteria 0.3 seconds faster than me and gloated about it for 20 minutes, which was exactly what I would have done. I got revenge by perfectly swiping the card on the first try, and Other me looked so genuinely impressed that I felt proud of myself for impressing myself. Yellow said, "You two are the weirdest thing that's happened on this ship," and Purple said, "What about when the vents started singing?" And Yellow said, "Okay, second weirdest." The crew started betting on which Red would win tasks, and Other me and I split the profits because we agreed that betting on yourself should be illegal. That's when Orange died in navigation, and the crew immediately suspected both of us because 2 suspects is statistically more suspicious than 1. At the meeting, we both had the same alibi. We were together doing tasks, and Blue said that's convenient, and we said it's efficient, and nobody believed us. Green said one of you is definitely the imposter trying to hide in plain sight, and we both said which one, and Green said I don't know, that's the problem. Other me suggested we both volunteer to be watched by different crew members, which was smart, and I was annoyed they thought of it first. I got paired with Cyan and Other me got paired with White, and we separated for the first time since meeting, which felt weirdly lonely. Cyan and I went to electrical, and that's when I saw it, other me venting in the distance, and my entire reality collapsed. Cyan said, "Oh no," and I said, "Oh no," and we both ran to the emergency button while I processed that I was apparently the imposter, or they were, or something was very wrong. At the meeting, I accused other me of venting, and they looked genuinely shocked, which either meant they were innocent or a really good actor, which I also would be. Other me said I didn't vent, "You're lying," and I said Cyan saw you, and other me looked at Cyan and said, "Did you really?" And Cyan nodded apologetically. That's when other me's face did something faces shouldn't do, flickered for just a second, showing something underneath that was definitely not human. Other me stood up slowly and said, "Okay, you got me," except their voice was now layered with something else, something ancient and hungry. They explained they were a shapeshifter who'd copied me perfectly, lived as me, learned to be me, and honestly had started to like being me, which was flattering but also terrifying. I asked, "Why didn't you just kill me?" And they said because killing you felt like suicide, and I didn't know whether to be touched or horrified. Other me said, "You're actually pretty cool. Living as you made me realize I could be better than just a killer," which was the weirdest compliment I'd ever received. The crew voted to eject other me, and as they walked to the airlock, they turned and said, "Keep being yourself, you're doing great," and I started crying. I watched other me get ejected into space, and Purple said that was the most emotionally complex ejection in history, and I couldn't disagree. The crew won, I survived, but my room felt too empty with just one bunk occupied, which was ridiculous because I'd always lived alone before. Cyan asked if I was okay, and I said I just killed my clone who was also an imposter, who also might have been my best friend, and Cyan said that's a lot to unpack. Green found me sitting in Medbay where we'd first met, and I was scanning myself over and over, checking I was still real, still me. That night I couldn't sleep because I kept expecting to hear other me snoring, and the silence was somehow worse than the noise ever was. The next round started and I found myself missing the competition, missing having someone who understood me perfectly, because they were literally me. Yellow asked why I was doing tasks slower than usual, and I said I used to have help, and they said from yourself, and I said yeah, it was nice. I kept the top bunk empty as a memorial, which Cyan said was sweet, and Purple said was creepy, and both were probably right. Sometimes I'd complete a task and turn to high-five other me before remembering they weren't there, which hurt in a way I couldn't explain to anyone. White asked if I'd want another clone, and I said no. What we had was unique. You can't just replace someone even if they were literally you. I started leaving notes for myself like other me used to, reminding myself to do tasks, and it felt like continuing their legacy in the smallest way. Green said you really cared about them, didn't you? And I said they were me. How could I not? And Green said that's the most narcissistic and wholesome thing I've ever heard. The ship's computer announced cloning bay malfunction repaired, and my heart jumped before I realized they weren't coming back. That moment was gone. I'm Red. I killed my clone who was an imposter, who was also kind of my best friend, and I learned that loving yourself is complicated when yourself is a shape-shifting alien. And sometimes, when I'm alone in Medbay, I swear I can still hear them saying, "Keep being yourself, you're doing great," and I'm trying. Other me. I'm really trying. Bean-shaped astronaut only, no humans. Oh,